one another. And when he told us now that we're supposed to do justice by the needy and the afflicted, I mean, one of the things that's really unique about poverty, about those that are in need, and the reason that God has his people engaged in charity is because it is very unique. It's very individual. Most of it's rooted in some type of pain to begin with. People get a little bit off and make decisions that they don't want to make, and next thing you know, they can end up in a hard place. And it's really unique. So this one-size-fits-all concept that we've come up with to deal with poverty so that we don't have to, it's just not working. And in fact, it was Michael Bowman, who's a professor up at Hillsdale University, wrote in this book, the name of the book was What Went Wrong with Welfare, but his little expose was entitled something else that I can't remember off the top of my mind. But one of the things that he was saying there is that, you know, as a society, we actually bought into this, and Christians bought into it, thinking that we would help. I mean, there were people that were in need, financial need. They were in poverty. And so as a society, the reason that the Great Society was able to be sold on these good people, the decent people, is because they were convinced that if we pool our resources, maybe we can help people that are in need a little bit, you know, provide them a little bit of food, provide them a little bit of housing, provide them a little bit of cash, and they'll be okay. We can lift them out of poverty. But as he said, we were wrong, and boy, were we wrong, because when you start thinking about it, that's when the means test had to come in. You can't just arbitrarily give out other people's money. That's one of the problems with what's going on in Washington, D.C. with the government control over poverty. You can't just arbitrarily say that this is the way that we're going to dispense this money, just throw it out in the street and let people gather it up. So they started means testing, and the means testing, I lived there. I'm telling you, I chose welfare because that was my most viable options. I had burned all the bridges at home. I didn't know who I would have married. I wouldn't have got married anyway, even if I could have identified the father of the child, because I had already bought the lie that marriage was not for me. You know, someone just wrote this new report, Marriage is for White People. I'm like, God, it's just getting worse and worse. These so-called leaders are just getting deeper and deeper into the gutter and convincing others that they should live like this. But, you know, the feminists had already engaged in this, you know, discussion about marriage, and first they said, well, it's real Victorian, and of course at that point I didn't know what that meant, so it didn't matter. Then they tried this, oh, it's kind of like prostitution, and that one sounded pretty juicy to me, so they then began this, yeah, no, marriage is really like slavery. Well, we weren't going there, so of course there were many more people that are saying no, absolutely not to marriage, so I wasn't able to do that. The work thing, yeah, you think that that would be a choice that some would make when they're in need because they're carrying a child and they're going to carry it to term and need to support it. But work was just not in my vocabulary at that time. And I had excuses and I had reasons not to work. I had bought the lie of the left that told me that America was inherently racist and so I should not mainstream. And it was good, worked for a while. The truth of the matter was I just didn't like time clocks, didn't want anyone to tell me what to do with my life. So that's how I ended up in that welfare gutter. And that's where God found me. You know, I'm so thankful for those times in my life because I don't know if I had continued to be successful living below the radar, or would I have gotten to the point where God would see me in that little bitty black hole and one day want me out. I really thought I was living large. I mean, you know, the welfare in California is very different from some places in the country. I had a real, you know, cute little apartment. I had to, you know, make sure that when the caseworker was coming, I kind of cleaned my boyfriend out and stuff like that. But I had one of those buzzers on the door, so I had to buzz her in. So it was really easy to do. I had a little fireplace going on, a little jacuzzi in the back. It's not how everybody gets to live, but I actually thought I was doing all right. But one of the problems with the welfare state is the rules. They did have rules so that they can make sure that you stay enslaved to their system. Don't work, don't save, don't get married, and we'll keep you here. And it wasn't too hard to do, except when you wanted extra cash. And so there was often times that I wanted a little bit extra cash, so I went to look for extra income and walked into this business in South Central Los Angeles. And they happened to say that they didn't pay like that. Why am I telling you this? Because the beautiful and unique thing about the work that you're doing is preaching the gospel to those that are in need. See, he told us to do justice, and the best thing we could do instead of push the problem off on somebody else is make sure that we are clear about Christianity. We begin the work, and God will take over from there. We do our part, and he just continues to multiply in that person's life. And every time somebody comes to the city, you should be extremely proud of yourself that you had 27 salvations just this year alone. You change one, you've changed the world, because everybody touches somebody else. And God really works. Christianity is real and is the breaker of all of the problems that one might have in their life. And that's what we're talking about, problem life. It's one of the reasons that Jesus himself preached the gospel to the poor, because he knew the essence of the gospel, that he is not mad at them. In fact, God was in Christ, reconciling the world to himself, not counting their sin against them. See, this is the message that these women and men need to hear, not a message of, I'm okay, you're okay, do whatever you want to, and we'll just kind of like keep subsidizing your life as everything around you is destroyed. No, the message of the gospel is, I've come to redeem you and set you free, and I can set you on a path that will be very prosperous. So anyway, I walk into this little place that I'm going to subsidize my little welfare check, and I thought